So the new topic is exception handling. Okay, so before starting this exception handling, first we will discuss about the what done by exception. Okay, so anyone of you know what done by exception? Dipti, Ashwita, what done by exception? Actually, there are two words. When you call the exception, then there are two words, related words. First one is an error. The second one is an exception. So we'll first discuss about error. Okay, so because it is commonly being used, error. So what do you mean by error? Error is, it is the, yes, yeah, it is error. What do you mean by error? It is something wrong in your program. If something is wrong in your program, suppose if you are running your program, then something wrong is, your program is not running. If you are compiling a program, if your program is not compiling, and that is called as a error. Okay, so there are two types of the error. There are two types of error. The first is called, type of the error is called the compilation type of error. Compilation errors. Okay, compilation errors. Okay, so compilation errors are generally caused when you are compiling your code. At the time of compilation of the code, if that type of error comes, then that called as a compilation error. So before running your program, if there is an error, then that is called as a compilation error. And the second type of the error is called as a runtime error. It is called as a runtime error. Runtime error is called, this is the error, this is get occur when at the time of running your program. Now everyone you are get everywhere you are getting the runtime error, this is not fixed. It depending on a particular condition. For example, Dipti said division by 0. For example, if you are executing a statement like C is equal to A divided by B. Okay, C is equal to A divided by B. This statement, suppose you are executing, and suppose this A and B you are taking from the user, and if the user has entered B equal to 0, then only, if the B equal to 0, then only this error will be occur. That's why it's called a runtime error. But if A is non-zero and B is also non-zero, then your program is perfectly fine. So that is called as a runtime error. Getting this? So there are two types of error: compilation type of the error, and second one is called a runtime error. Compilation errors are called, generally called as a, it is called as a syntax error. It is called as a syntax error. Syntax error means, suppose while writing your program, suppose you want to write a while loop. So while A greater than B, and colon should be there. Okay, colon should be there. And suppose print A greater than B. Okay, so this kind of the statement, suppose this kind of the statement you want to execute. Now if you want to execute this kind of the statement, then this code is fine, because there is no syntax error. But suppose while writing this program, suppose you forgot to write that colon there. Now when you run this program, actually there is a error. And what is that error? The colon is missing there. So this is the kind of syntax error. This program will not run until you put a colon there. Getting? So this is called as a compilation or the syntax error. Now next one is the runtime error. The example of the runtime error we already seen, that is already divide by 0 error. Okay, divide by 0 error. And runtime error are called, generally called as exceptions. It's called as the exceptions. Okay, so in this actually topic we will see that how to handle the runtime exception or runtime error. Getting this? So we are handling, generally how to handle the syntax error, we already know that, because if you know the syntax, then only your program get perfectly run. For example, if I want to print only hello, okay, so my program is hello, okay, so this program is perfectly fine. This program is perfectly fine when you run this program. When you run this program, it print the hello, okay, so your output is hello, okay. But before the print, suppose you put a one space here. Before print, you print one space. One space is there, and just try to run this program. When you run the program, there is a error that is called the indentation error. Now this type of the error will occur. This is called the syntax type of the error. Getting? So this should be removed before running your program. So you remove the space and again rerun the program, and you will get an output as a hello there. Getting? But suppose if there is a runtime error is there, then how to handle that runtime error we will see here. Okay. So here the exception handling can be done by using the try catch block. It is called the try catch block. Okay. Try catch block. Okay, but here this try catch block is from the Java. It's called the try, and there is a catch word is there. But in Python, actually, it is a try except block. Try except block. Okay, this try catch is from the Java. In Python, it's called the try except block. But actually, its wording is try catch. The catch means except. Okay, so try this code except this following exception. This is the syntax, and how to write that syntax we will see here. Okay, so it is very easy, very easy. Exception handling is totally very easy, but how to handle we will see here. For example, I'm taking the input. I'm taking the input. So a is equal to input, and okay, so directly I'm giving some value. Okay, a is equal to 10, b is equal to 20. Okay, so a is equal to 10, b is equal to 20, and here I'm doing c is equal to a divided by b. Okay, and I'm printing the result as a result, or the division is equal to comma c. Okay, so if I run the program run perfectly fine, and you will get output as 0.5. Okay, you will get output as 0.5. Getting this? There is no exception. There is no exception, so no need to handle it. But by mistake, suppose instead of writing 20, suppose by mistake I have typed as a 0, or if b is a user defined, if b is a user, it is taken from the user, and if the user has inputted as a 0, then if I run the program, then what kind of the error it occurs? It occurs the zero division error. Okay, so there is an exception is occurred here. This is called the runtime exception. This runtime exception occurred, and the name of that exception is the zero division error and division by 0. Okay, so this kind of the exception we must handle. So actually, if you are not handling this type of the exception, then what happened? Your program suddenly terminate. Let's check here. For example, there is a statement like here, suppose my code. Okay, so after division, your output should be my code, and when you run this program, you will get that it will stop at the line number 8. It is not going to print the my code. It is not going to print my code here. Getting? So it means that suddenly your program gets stopped. Okay, so but if your program is suddenly stopped, then your program is not running, and if your program is not running, then your program is not responding. Okay, so that's why if you want to respond your code, or if the exception occurred, then your program should be handled by himself. Okay, the program should not be terminated. It should be handled by your program only. So then you have to handle that exception. So how to handle that exception, we'll see. First we will write the try block. So we'll write the try block, try, and whatever the statement we want to try, we have to put inside that print try block. Okay, so this is my try block, and then what kind of the exception you want to catch it. What kind of exception you want to catch? Now I want to catch this zero division error exception. Okay, so try this except this, try this except this exception. If this exception occur, then print print b should be non-zero. B should be non-zero. Okay, now same program if I'm running, you can see here, it first catch that exception, and after catching the exception it print whatever you have written into the except block. So it is b should be non-zero, your program get handled, your exception get handled, and then it is not get terminated. Whatever the next statement is there, it is get printed here. Okay, so program is suddenly not exit, your program is executes all the lines of your code. If the exception occur, your program suddenly not going to exit. Getting? So after handling that exception, it printed the my code here, and it is printing my code. Getting this? So whatever the exception you want to handle, you just have to put it here, all the exception. And suppose there is a one exception is there. So d is equal or so c is equal to, so x is equal to a into d into t. Okay, so suppose you are executing this expression. In this expression d is unknown. Okay, d is unknown. When you are running this code, what happened here? Okay, so I should put here itself. Here itself. Okay, so what kind of exception occur? Name error. Okay, so if the whatever the symbol you are using and that is not predefined, then that the name error exception will occur there, because what is d, your compiler don't know. Okay, so that's why d should be defined. There is a name error is there. So how to handle the name error? So I can write the another except block, so and the name, but for this you should know the exact name of that exception. I'm getting the name error, so I'm handling that exception name error, and whatever the statement you want to write when the name error is occurred, you can write it here. Okay, for example, so d is, or the undefined symbol. This is my exception handling. Okay, so if the zero division error occur first, then it print b should be non-zero. If the name error occur first, then it define the undefined symbol. So if you are running this program, then what is the exception first occur? It occur as a name error. Okay, so from this line, from the line number 8, it is directly go to the except block. First is matches that, is it name error? No, it is not name error. So it go to the checking for the next exception. Is it name error? Yeah, it is name error. So if that block get matches, and it printed whatever it is written there, so undefined symbol. Getting this? And then the my code is executed. So whatever the code written out after that try block get also executed here. So here the zero division error is not get occurred here. Why? Because zero division error is after that exception. After resolving this exception, you are going to execute this code. So that's why only one exception is occurred here. But if you don't know that what kind of exception is occurred, suppose if you are handling, if you have already defining that d, firstly d is equal to 10, and when you rerun the program, now in this time, now this is not an error because d is already defined, Now there is an error, is a zero division error. Okay, a name error is not match. A name error not match, so this printf is not get executed. So you can handle, you can catch the multiple exception, number of exception you can catch. Got it? But suppose if there are the common statement, if there are common statement, now there are the different statement, but if there are common statement you want to write for the all the exception, then you can use this kind of the technique. You can use this kind of the technique. For example, exception occurred. Okay, so if the zero division error occurred, then it print the exception occurred. If name error occurred, then it also print the exception occurred. So if I run the program, it print exception occurred. If there is a name error is there, it also print exception occurred here. Okay, so if out of this list, actually out of this list, if anyone name is matches, if anyone name is matches, then this printf statement get executed. Okay, but suppose if there are the different print statement or the different statement for each error or each exception, then you should write the different except block for that tribe. Getting this? So the syntax is very simple. Syntax is very simple. First, you have to write down here the code to be tested. Okay, to code to be tested, and here in a except you have to write down here the list of exceptions. List of exception. In the print, you have to write down here the code to be executed when the exception occurred. Okay, so this is the code to be executed when the exception occurred. Okay, so getting the syntax, so whatever the code that you to be tested, you have to write down here with the one tab. Okay, with the tab. So there is in a try block, you have to write down the all the code to be tested. And suppose if there is some exception, you know that this code might generate this kind of exception, so handle that all the exception here. If you there is a common code is there, then you write down the list of exception. If there is a separate code for each exception, then you should write down the list of the except block here. One try block can have the multiple except block. Okay, multiple except block can have it here. So getting this? Yes. Yeah, Indrajit, Dipti, Harshita, Aswita, Abhinay. Are you getting this point? It is a very easy point actually, because the same point actually, if you have learned the Java before this, the same point is available in Java as well as in your C++. So whatever the code to be tested, you have to put it here only, and whatever the exception you want to catch, you have to write down here list or one exception, second exception, except second exception code, third exception code, like that. Okay. So we have done here try except block. There is one try else block is also there, else block. Now we'll see what is that else block. Okay, so this is my code. This is my code. Suppose if the exception is not occurred, if the exception is not occurred, then I want to execute some code. Then I can write that code in an else block. No exception occurred. Your code executed fully. Your code executed fully. Okay, so if there is no exception is occurred, then else block will be executed. So you can see here, now exception is occurred. Now D is not defined. D is not defined. So name error will occur and it print the exception occurred. Getting this? But if I want to print the else block, if I want to print the else block, you have to correct this code. So how to correct this code? Suppose I've defined the D. D is equal to tail, and here I'm making the B as 20 here. Now this is also no error. This statement is also not having error, and this statement is also not having any runtime error. So let's check the program. When I run the program, you can see here it print the division. It first print the division, then after printing the division, it go to the else block. Now it go to the else block only if there is no exception occurred. Okay, so if there is no exception occurred, then this statement get executes. Whatever the statement you are putting into the else block get executed. So no exception occurred, your code executed fully. And after executing the else block, whatever the next statement also get to be executes. Getting this? So else block is very easy. This block will execute if this block will execute if the no exception occurred. If no exception occurred, else block will execute. Yes. So are you getting this? Actually, there is no rocket science behind this. Very simple. If else, this is just like your if else. If exception occurred, execute this. Otherwise, execute this. Okay, this is a very simple technique to understand here. If exception, execute this. If no exception, execute this. Okay, so we have done the else part also, else block. Okay, the last keyword in your exception handling is the finally. Finally block. Finally block. Now else block, execution of the else block is totally depending on your exception. If the exception occur, else block will execute. But suppose you want to execute a code which has to be executed if the exception occurred, or the same statement has to be executed if the exception is also not occurred. Okay, so in both condition, if you want to execute it, okay, in both condition, exception occurred, then only you have to execute. If there is no exception, then only you have to execute that statement. Then instead of writing the else, you should write here finally block. Okay, so finally, so it means that if there is an exception, if there is an exception, you can, okay, instead of that I am writing here the finally block here. Okay, so print this statement has to be executes every time. Okay, every time. If the exception occurred, then only this statement is executed. If exception is not occurred, then also this statement has to be executes. Okay, so we'll check that. Now there is no exception in your program. There is no exception in your program, so you have printed the result, as well as else block is also execute because there is no exception, and also finally block is also executes. This statement has to be executed every time. Okay, now we'll create one exception, and that is a name error exception. Okay, D is not defined here, so name error exception is occurred. So what is the output? The output should be firstly exception occurred, this has to be executes. If the exception is occurred, else block is not get executes, but finally has to be executed, because finally has to be executed if the in both cases exception occurred or not occurred. So if I run the code, then you can see here Now the exception occurred, then finally block also is executed. Finally block also executed. So finally block is very much useful when there is a compulsory code is there. If exception is there, you have to execute the statement. Otherwise, if exception is also not there, you have to execute the same statement. Okay, so what kind of statement generally we are putting into the finally? Suppose you have opened a file. Okay, you open a file here. You open file here in a try block. Suppose you open a file. Suppose uh, opens a file. Okay, if you opens a file statement, open a file statement. So whatever the statement to open a file that we are putting here, and if you open a file, it is your responsibility to close that file. Now you have to close the file if the exception occurred. Otherwise, if the exception is not occurred, also you have to close the file. So that close statement you have to write down here. So close the file, close the file. Okay, so here you have opened a file, you are doing something, but suppose at the time of doing something, if the exception occurred, it is if that particular exception is handled, it is printed here and then it closes the file. If exception is not occurred, if something you are writing into the file, it is written, and then if exception is not occurred, it again go to the finally and it closes the file. So closing the file is compulsory statement. This has to be executed at every time. Every time you have to execute the statement. So all the statement that has to be executed every time, you have to put that statement into the finally block. Okay, so are you getting this? Yes, are you getting this point? Else block, finally block. Yeah, any doubts? Now you can raise a exception by yourself also. Okay, by yourself also. For example, suppose I want to raise a value error. I want to raise a value error. Okay, so there is no statements is there. Directly you want to raise a value error. So value error you have to directly raise. So how to raise a value error? So there is a statement called as a raise value error, and there is a actually constructor you are calling here value error and some suppose whatever the argument you want to pass, you can pass it here. For example, error. Okay, so now value error I have not handled here. Value error I have handled only zero division error and name error. So what, when I run this code, actually it gives the exception because value error is not handled. Okay, so value error and error. Okay, so how to do this? You can make the list here with the value error. Get it? So exception occurred. Exception occurred. This statement has to be executed every time and my code. Getting this? But how much error actually you are catching here? How much error? So if you want to catch all the errors, if you want to catch all the errors, just do this thing. Except. Okay, except. So it means that any error came, if any error came, then it prints exception occurred. When I run this code, it prints the same output, exception occurred. So if any type of the error came, then it print the same output. Suppose C is equal to 2 divided by 0. Okay, so if the same division error, okay, zero division error. So this is also the having the same output. Okay, so if you want to catch all the errors, then use this technique. Except, try this code, accept all the exception. If any exception occurred, it printed this code. Getting this? So I'm taking one program which generally uh, demonstrate that how to raise a error, and that program is write a program. Okay, write a program which is having a list. Okay, one list is there, and you have to actually read the elements of that list. Whatever the list element, you have to read one by one, and if one of the value in that list is negative, then you have to raise a value error. You have to raise a value error. Okay, so simply I'm writing that code here. So list one is equal to the suppose some state numbers I'm giving. Suppose one number I'm giving as a -3. Okay, now you have to read every element. So how to read every element for ELE in list one, for ELE in list one. Now you have to check here if number is greater than or equal to 0. So it means that if the number is positive, if the number is positive, you have to print the square of that number. Suppose you have to print square of that number. So square of the number is ELE multiplied by the ELE. Okay, and suppose if the number is, if this condition is not satisfied, now means ELE. Okay, if the condition is not satisfied, if the condition is not satisfied means the number is negative. If the number is negative, you have to raise a error, raise the value error. Okay, raise the value error. I am giving the message as negative number, negative number. Okay, so this is the my code. Firstly, without handling the exception, I'm running this code, trying to run this code. You can see here one for 1 it printed the square, for 3 it printed square, for 4 it printed square, for 6 it printed square, for 7 it printed square, but for -3 it raises the value error. You can see here value error and negative number. Getting this? Now you want to handle this exception. So how to handle the exception? Very simple. Put this code in try block. Put this code in try block. So all the code you have to put into the try block. Okay, so this code is try block. Now which error I have to handle? I have to handle the value error. Okay, value error. So you can use here value error as VE. You can give the name here. If you want to print the what are the arguments of that error, you can print as a VE dot args, VE dot args. So what is the output here? It printed the negative number. It printed negative number. Okay, so after 49 it printed the negative number. Getting this? Okay, so you can also str of ELE. Okay, negative number -3. You can also get a one specified error. So this is the error that is occurred. Getting? So this kind of the code actually you have to write down. If suppose if some code is there and that code is not working for a particular input, then you have to put that code into the try except block, and you have to handle that type of the exception. Yes. So any doubt in this exception handling? Now your assignment is you have to go to the Python help, and you have to list out all the errors, Python errors. Python exception. Just like we have taken the that value error, name error, then division zero error. So this type of the error, zero division error, these three errors we have find out. So your task is go to the Python help and find out all the errors available, and at what time actually that errors occurred. Okay, you have to study all that errors. It is very important related to your MCQ. So in a MCQ, some code is given, and that you the question is uh, identify the exception occurred in the above code. So you must know that the exact name of that error. Just like zero division error. These names you should know, because the name of that zero division error in Java is different and in Python it is different. Okay, so you must know that exact name of that error. So assignment, you write down the exception, and in front of that exception write down the yes, you have to write down the at what time that exception occurred. Okay, so any doubt in exception handling? Yes, if you have, if you understood all the topics, try except block, else block, final block. This is the only thing that is available in exception handling. The rest of things you will learn at the time of you are doing a programming. This is the syntax actually that I am trying to give you. So if you have no doubt, just type no doubts in chat window. Okay, yes, okay.